Goes without saying, lenses are expensive. I've spent a lot of money on lenses over the last couple of years, and I'm currently in the market for a 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 lens. I was at Henry's for their friends and family sales event today, and I almost walked out with one, but they're so expensive and I just couldn't justify that expense. So I was fiscally responsible, and despite how difficult it was, I didn't buy another lens. But it got me thinking about the lenses I already own, and I decided to do a little bit of a comparison of a few lenses that I've purchased and just see what the difference is when you're shooting in the exact same scenario with the same lighting and settings, how different an image you get out of these lenses, because I've never done that before. So I decided to use the 50 millimeter. The fun reason for using the 50 mil is I love the look of it. It's a great lens for, you know, close-ups and getting that sort of detail on this nice shallow bokeh, but it's also versatile enough that if it's the only lens you got, you can back out, and if you've got the space, and shoot a decent enough wide or medium shot of something. The more realistic reason I chose the 50 is it's the only lens that I have 3 different versions, all priced very differently. So that's sort of the, you know, the reasonable reason. So what lenses are we going to be looking at today? First, we're going to look at the Tamron first generation 24 to 70 millimeter lens. This thing is a little bit old at this point. It cost me about $1,000. Everybody's got a version of this. Sony, Canon, Sigma, Nikon, everyone's got a 24 to 70 because it's a workhorse. When you're out running and gunning, which we often are, you're not quite sure what you're gonna pick up. It's a terrific lens for that because you can get a nice wide at 24, zoom it in to 70 and get a nice close up. Running and gunning, but it's just one of those lenses that kind of is a staple in everyone's kit. We use it all the time. Almost, this comes out with us on every shoot, and it's a fixed aperture at f2.8. They can go for like the Canon, you know, L series 2.8, 24 to 70, you're looking at over $2,000. Even the Tamron second generation is a bit more expensive at $1,500, give or take. We're gonna set this at 50 mil, and that'll be the first lens. The second lens we're gonna look at is the Rokinon 50mm T1.5. This thing is about 500 bucks. I got it in a kit with a bunch of other Rokinon Cine Primes. This thing opens up so wide, and you can see how much light gets through that aperture right there. This thing, amazing in low light conditions, doesn't have an image stabilizer in lens, so you gotta rely on the camera if you're kind of running and gunning or going handheld. I love it so much. And last but not least, well, kind of least because it's definitely the cheapest, is the Canon Nifty 50. That's sort of the nickname it has. It is a f1.8. This would be what I would consider the first good lens that I bought, and it's cheap. This thing is 120 bucks. Everybody should have one of these. This is the older version. It's got a plastic mount instead of the metal ones that they do now. This thing is, I can't speak well enough about this thing because this allowed me to get those really nice images early on in my sort of shooting career of sorts. I'm not a cinematographer. And if it gets destroyed or smashed, if you're concerned about the safety of your gear while you're kind of out in the field, it would be a loss of 120 bucks as opposed to like a loss of 1,000 plus for a 24 to 70. So I had Melissa do a little scene where she just picks up a book and reads, and I shot every single shot exactly the same on each of these lenses to compare what the differences would be. I shot them all at f2.8 because that's the widest aperture that the Tamron can open up to. Take a look. And we're back. I don't know about you, but if I just watched those back myself without the labels telling me what they were, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. Now, upon closer inspection, you can see some of the differences in them. When you look at the Nifty 50, for example, it's really noticeable in the bokeh of the Christmas lights behind Melissa in the close-up. You can see the lights have a five, what is a 5? I know 6 is hexagon, right? What's an 8 is octagon? It has 5 edges because the blades that make up the aperture in the Nifty 50, there's 5 of them. So it gives it that very clear 5 lines on the bokeh, where the Rokinon has 8. So it has a very octagonal look. You can see that in the comparison between them, and the Tamron really round. But really, other than that, when you're shooting in this sort of controlled environment at all the same settings, it's a negligible difference. Now, if you're shooting in a low light condition and you open up the aperture all the way, that's when you can really tell a difference. The Rokinon opens up widest. Even in darkness, you get a really much brighter image out of it. However, then you're looking at a super shallow depth of field, which can be a challenge when you're shooting by yourself. The Tamron, a little bit darker, but it's got a bit more play in how close you can be to something before it falls out of focus. Canon also opens up really wide at 1.8. Definitely comparable, like if you're out in the field. The thing you need to remember is that your target audience are generally people who aren't in this business. They're not people who would be able to tell the difference between a Canon Nifty 50 and a Tamron 24-70. Most people watch footage, watch a video, and they're into it for the story. They're into it for the composition of the image. They don't care what lens it was shot on or how expensive it was, because they don't know these things. When you're kind of weighing your options as to what glass or what lens or what camera you need to buy, that's one thing you need to keep in consideration, is that generally people don't know the stuff that you and I know when we're discussing photography or cinematography. We have a variety of lenses because we shoot at night sometimes, we shoot during the day, we run and gun, we do lit stuff. Like, all of the lenses have a different reason for existence, and you need to know what reasons you're shooting for before you pick the lens you need to buy. So anyway, I thought that was a fun little experiment. If you liked it, hit the subscribe button, follow me, like the video, do all the things other YouTubers tell you what to do at the end of every video. And I don't know, see you next time. Open. I love it.